Edward VIII's abdication, a love that cost the throne. Edward VIII, before his accession, Prince of Wales, full name Edward Albert Christian George Andrew Patrick David, was born on June 23, 1894. He was the eldest son of King George V and Queen Mary. In his youth, Edward was immensely popular, a charming, modern prince who actively engaged in charity work, visited mines, factories, and impoverished areas, and advocated for social reforms. He was known as the People's Prince. In 1931, in London, at a social gathering hosted by Lady Furness, Edward met American Wallis Warfield Simpson, née Bessie Wallace Warfield. Wallis had been married twice. Her first marriage ended in divorce in 1927, and her second, to British businessman Ernest Simpson, was still ongoing. She was a vibrant, witty, self-assured woman, skilled at conversation and organizing life around her. Edward fell deeply in love quickly. By 1934, their relationship was openly acknowledged within close circles. They traveled together, appeared in public, and Ernest Simpson increasingly stayed in the background. On January 20th, 1936, King George V died. Edward became King Edward VIII. His reign lasted only 325 days, one of the shortest in British monarchy history. From the start, it was clear the new king was unwilling to adhere strictly to traditions. He ignored certain protocols, wanted to modernize the monarchy, but above all, he was determined to marry Wallis. In October 1936, Wallis filed for divorce from her second husband, the process finalized in May 1937. This triggered the crisis. Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin and Archbishop of Canterbury Cosmo Lang declared that the Church of England, of which the king was head, did not recognize remarriage of divorced persons while former spouses were alive. The public and the dominions, Canada, Australia, etc., were adamantly opposed to a twice-divorced American becoming queen consort. Edward proposed a compromise, a morganatic marriage. He would remain king. Wallis would become his wife, but without the title of queen and without succession rights for any potential children. The cabinet and dominions rejected the idea, as it would set a precedent and undermine the monarchy's authority. The crisis peaked in early December 1936. On December 2nd, the British press, previously silent by agreement, exploded with headlines. Wallis left for France to escape harassment. Edward realized either he gave up the marriage or the throne. On December 9th, he informed Baldwin of his decision to abdicate. On December 10th, 1936, at Fort Belvedere, his favorite residence, Edward signed the instrument of abdication. I, Edward VIII of Great Britain, Ireland, and the British dominions beyond the seas, King Emperor of India, do hereby declare my irrevocable determination to renounce the throne for myself and for my descendants, and my desire that effect should be given to this instrument of abdication immediately. The document was witnessed by his brothers, Albert, Duke of York, future George VI, Henry, Duke of Gloucester, and George, Duke of Kent. On December 11th, Parliament passed the Abdication Act, and Edward officially ceased to be king. The throne passed to his brother Albert, who became George VI. That same evening, December 11th, 1936, at 10 p.m. from Windsor Castle, Edward addressed the nation by radio. It was one of the most famous speeches of the 20th century. Full original text, as delivered with minor variations in some transcriptions due to punctuation, but this is the authentic version transcribed from audio recordings. At long last, I am able to say a few words of my own. I have never wanted to withhold anything, but until now it has not been constitutionally possible for me to speak. A few hours ago, I discharged my last duty as king and emperor, and now that I have been succeeded by my brother, the Duke of York, my first words must be to declare my allegiance to him. This I do with all my heart. You all know the reasons which have impelled me to renounce the throne, but you must believe me when I tell you that I have found it impossible to carry the heavy burden of responsibility and to discharge my duties as king as I would wish to do, without the help and support of the woman I love. I want you to know that the decision I have made has been mine and mine alone. This was a thing I had to judge entirely for myself. The other person, most nearly concerned, has tried up to the last to persuade me to take a different course. I have made this the most serious decision of my life, only upon the single thought of what would, in the end, be best for all. I have, after the most serious reflection, come to the conclusion that I cannot discharge my duties as king as I would wish to do without the woman I love by my side, and I have accordingly decided to renounce the throne. I now quit altogether public affairs, and I lay down my burden. It may be some time before I return to my native land, but I shall always follow the fortunes of the British race wherever they may be, and the fortunes of my native land with deep and abiding affection. God save the King. Note, some versions have slight differences in phrasing or pauses, but this matches reliable transcriptions from sources like American Rhetoric and Historical Archives. After the abdication, Edward was granted the title Duke of Windsor. On June 3, 1937, he and Wallis married in France, at Château de Condé. The royal family boycotted the wedding, and Wallis never received the title Her Royal Highness, only Duchess of Windsor. They lived in exile, mainly in France and the United States, until Edward's death in 1972. Wallis outlived him by 14 years and died in 1986. This story became a symbol of the conflict between personal happiness and monarchical duty, between love and tradition. Edward VIII remains the only British monarch in modern times to voluntarily abdicate the throne.
Subscribe.